and welcome to Nonprofit Enthusiast Live, the weekly sessions where we talk about all things nonprofit. Whether you're a seasoned nonprofit professional or just getting started in the industry, these lives are for you. Our mission is to provide engaging and informative conversations with experts in the nonprofit world, sharing insights, strategies, and stories that can help you make a difference in your community and beyond. Each episode is centered around a theme for the month. The topics include anything from fundraising and marketing to volunteer management and board development. We'll explore the challenges facing nonprofits today and share practical tips and advice for overcoming them. But Nonprofit Enthusiast Live isn't just about learning. We also want to create a community of like-minded individuals who are passionate about making a positive impact. We want to hear from you and engage in conversations that inspire and motivate us all to do more. So whether you're tuning in during your morning commute, while doing chores around the house, or on a break from your busy workday, we hope you'll find something valuable in each episode of Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. I am so excited to be here once again. I am your host, Lashina Williams, and this month we've been talking about a couple topics. One has been National Nonprofit Day, which has passed on August 17th, and now we're focusing the rest of the month, which is the last day of the month today, on fund development and fundraising. So if you missed any of those past conversations, I strongly encourage you to check out the guide section of the group so that you can catch some of those conversations and information that was shared to help you grow your nonprofit. I am so excited today to have Miss Deborah Pajaza from the Foundation for Orange County Public School back on with us. It's always a good time. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her up so we can start and continue the conversation on fund development and fundraising. Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for your patience this morning. I had a few technical difficulties, and technology is great when it works. So
it is
up and running. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, I'm just glad to be able to have you on once again because I know every time you come, there's some new knowledge, new information that helps us in the nonprofit realm. So this month, before we actually dive into the topic, for those that have not got to meet you, do you mind just kind of giving us a glimpse of your journey in the nonprofit and how you entered the field?
Yeah, absolutely. I started in 1997, kind of stumbled backwards into alumni and development. I was working at a boarding school up in New England and had been a paralegal. They needed a prospect researcher. That was a really easy jump for me. And so I've had a chance, unlike a lot of people, I've had a chance to do almost every job in development since 1997. So I started with prospect research, moved into stewardship and grant writing and board development. And then from there, ran the annual fund, started into major gifts. And then I went to another organization where I had a chance to really learn events fundraising from the ground up, which was the one thing we hadn't done where I had been before. And built out their annual fund and their major gifts and was starting to dabble in planned giving when I came back home to Florida to work with Orange County Public Schools and started as their first ever director of philanthropic development, which really was a major gifts officer position, and stepped into the foundation for Orange County Public Schools in 2016. So I've done almost every job. I have overseen almost every job. And one of the things I love to do is help mentor other professionals and help them learn and grow and, really understand how all of this fits together. I think sometimes some of us end up stepping into a position and it's hard to see the bigger picture, how it all fits together. So that's something that I love being able to share, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. So I know that we have some members in the groups that's currently studying nonprofit.
Mhm.
they might be doing their undergraduate, graduate in the nonprofit realm. And and oftentimes too, when I speak to a few individuals, they're kind of trying to decide where in nonprofit they want to go, or is fundraising, grant writing, is that the area that they want to go in to?
Yeah.
What type of tips would you have for those individuals to kind of be able to have that, get that clarity is as to, is that the area in nonprofit they want to go? And if it is the area, what are some things you think they need to have in their early years in their toolbox in order to be able to, be successful in their career?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think, a lot of people assume that if you are a development officer and you're a fundraiser, that what you do is walk up to people and be like, Lashina, hey, nice to meet you. I heard you have some money. Need some money. So how about you give us some
Hmm.
money? And that's not at all what the job is. Usually, even in a small nonprofit, as long as they have a good database and there's good record keeping, really what you're doing is helping donors and prospective donors make an impact on a mission they already care about. You're a connector, really, more than anything else, and you are a relationship manager. So are you more comfortable managing relationships face to face, or do you like to write? And do you understand that you're building upon the success of other people who were there before you? The good record keeping is a key. If you're looking to start with a nonprofit, I I'm a big believer in just jump in feet first, and then learn the systems. It all fits together. If you don't have a solid database, good records, it's really hard to build relationships from the ground up because that's what you really need to do. But don't think that you can't just you couldn't be a major gifts officer because you're afraid to walk up to somebody and or cold call them in person. There's really not that much of that. A first conversation with somebody is going to be about, tell me how you got connected with this organization. Tell me why you support this mission. So, if you have a heart for helping others and you enjoy helping other people help others, helping them make that possible, then this is a great field for you. It's a lot of cheerleading. It's a lot of sharing the great successes that are going on, and it's a lot. So much of it is about helping people connect with missions. That really is what all of the jobs are about. And a small nonprofit's a great place to start because you have to wear multiple hats.
Hmm.
Great place to learn. So not saying that large nonprofits aren't great too, but look for a mentor in a large nonprofit and look for opportunities to do different things. Ask for those opportunities along the way because it really helps to see how all the pieces fit together.
I love that. And I love that you talked about being a connector and just kind of looking at it in those lens. Cause I remember when I was starting out in the field and when fundraising, grant writing, I was like,
Yeah.
instantly I just thought sales. You know what I mean? Like having to have that strength of sales. And you're right, being able to build those connections, relationships, connecting people to the mission, it is a lot of the roles. I love that.
Yeah, and we really don't have anything to sell, do we? We're
Mm-hmm.
that's it's really not that kind of job. Um,
Mm-hmm.
early in my career, there was a gentleman who did at a conference. He was explaining to us newbies. He's like, I go to a lot of cocktail parties. It's part of my job, and sometimes I don't feel like talking to anybody. So, first question people ask you at a cocktail party: So, what do you do? And I tell them I
Mm-hmm.
raise money, and they run, holding on to their wallets and their purses, and I can enjoy my hors d'oeuvres and my drink. But if you really want to tell people what you do, you tell them you connect people and organizations with missions they already care about and help them figure out
Mm-hmm.
how to have an even deeper, more meaningful impact. I've always remembered that, and it's driven what I've done throughout my career. So, yep, I always share it too.
I love that. I love that. So speaking of cocktail parties, one of our areas, is friend raising.
Mhm.
Can you share some tips in the area of friend raising for nonprofit organizations?
Absolutely, regardless of the size of your organization. Again, we're relationship managers and relationship builders. So it's this fundraising is a great space to engage your board, to ask your board, first of all, and you could start it with, a conversation at a board meeting, just why do you support this organization? Why do you serve? And help them articulate that, get in touch with that, connecting back to their mission. But then asking if there are a few of them who would be willing to invite folks to a restaurant, their home, another location to learn more about your organization. So it is people who are already trusted by their networks inviting um, inviting people who they know, inviting their network in to learn more about something that matters to them. That's a great space to work. One that might not be as obvious is, we love to do this with our board. In fact, they've asked me to schedule some of these for this fall. We do thankathons with our board members. We bring them in, we set up phones, and they make calls to individuals, especially to thank them for having supported the organization. You don't have to reach them on the phone. You can leave voicemails, it's just as effective.
Hmm.
But we find that we get very good retention from new donors, especially when we do that. And when they do have a conversation, they get that personal connection. They get a chance to talk to them about what's important here, why did they choose to give, what questions can they answer for them. Just, again, connecting people
Hmm.
together. Um, and then, if you have large audiences, we have very large audiences with Orange County Public Schools. And because we're public schools, something that public schools don't do very well is stay connected to their alumni. So we are doing things like talking with our partners and finding spaces where we can gather alumni to reconnect. Again, friend raising. There's no ask going on. It's just
Hmm.
connecting with them. So
Hmm.
we've had a session at the Improv that was really fun out on International Drive, and they
Hmm.
somehow those amazing people managed to put together a show for us that were all OCPS alumni. Every single one
What?
was on stage. It was
Wow.
fantastic. Um, and we've got some tailgating events coming up with Orlando City Soccer. Because we have
Hmm.
a board member who, one of our board members works for Orlando City Soccer, and they've been kind enough to, let us use their space, sell discounted tickets, we're gathering up our alumni. So think about the audiences that you have that you want to connect with, and customizing some type of a gathering, some type of a communication for them to be able to reconnect. If it's going to be a communication, you want some kind of call to action, whether they're, signing up for your newsletter or joining a new affinity group. Give them something they can do to connect with you so that you can communicate to them the wonderful work that your nonprofit is doing, and find out from them, what do they want to know. You might be surprised. There's a new platform called Thought Exchange that we've been using. The district has been using. We have a new superintendent, Dr. Maria
Hmm.
Vasquez. She's finished her first year. But Thought Exchange is a platform where, when you are at a gathering, you can use it anytime, but it's great when you have a gathering. You can pose questions to your audience, and they submit their answers anonymously. They don't include their
Hmm.
names. And then everybody in the room votes, upvotes the responses. So
Mm.
the ones that you agree with, you say you agree, and they float to the top. You can see all of
Hmm.
them in the course of using this platform, but you see what rises to the top are the things that are common. for people. So we did. Dr. Vasquez went out last fall and did community town halls at each of our high schools, and the questions were things like, what's going well at OCPS, what needs to be changed, are you getting sufficient communication, and it was fairly open-ended questions, so it allows people to put in their thoughts, and it's extremely valuable. It's real time, especially when you're in a town hall type meeting. But
Mm-hmm.
you can use it just online. We've got, I think, up on ocps.net right now. There's a link asking, what do people want to see? What topics do they want to see on the Mondays with Maria video segments that we're doing
Mm-hmm.
with Dr. Vasquez? That's a great way to friend raise too. You want to give people opportunities that allow them to share their ideas, to share their concerns, and be able to hear follow up on it. And you want something where you are able to share with them your successes, your concerns. It's about a
Mm-hmm.
transparent conversation, which builds trust, which builds relationships. So, and then those friends will be in your pipeline to be able to move along as appropriate. Not everybody will become a donor, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a large group of friends out there advocating for you.
Mm-hmm.
Friend raising is important to do.
I love it. And I love that you talked about the Thinkathon, the using the board members to make those phone calls. So not only if it's
Yeah.
that human connection, but also the board members are able to kind of dive deeper into the mission
Hmm.
um of the organization. I love that. So let me ask you for that executive director or founder who's tuning in, they're like, wait, so you mean in addition to my programs that I'm already kind of doing everything, I
Yeah.
need to also, I should also set up these other opportunities for friend raising. What tips would you have for them to be able to kind of be able to balance this into the mix of their day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. So think of friend raising and stewardship as two sides of the same coin. So one easy way to use friend raising and stewardship when you're a very busy
Hmm.
nonprofit exec is, if you're getting pick your threshold for what's a major gift. For some organizations, maybe it's $500. For others, it might be 1,000. If you're very small, maybe it's 250 or 100. But pick that threshold, and when that gift comes in, and you're opening the mail and you see the gift, take 2 minutes, no more than 2 minutes, find the phone number for that person and pick up the phone and do what a thankathon would do. Just take just a few moments to call them and say, we just received your gift. I want to thank you so much. Are there any questions I can answer for you? As simple as that. And go from there. So that's something you can work in easily um,
Hmm.
to it. And again, I would recommend, especially for small nonprofits that are busy, really, leverage your board. Ask your board, who they're willing to talk to, who they're willing to invite to learn more. It doesn't have to be large. It doesn't have to be expensive.
Hmm.
We're starting up some with our chair, our immediate past chair is very interested in inviting folks to his home, small groups at a time. And, we're catering from Publix. So it's, he's kind enough to
Hmm.
open up his home and inviting people in. So it's a very low cost, high touch type of event. So you don't have to spend a lot of money, but you do want to pay attention to the experience that the attendees have. So yeah, your
Love
your
it.
board may be more willing than you think to help.
Hmm.
So, and yet board members are often terrified of the idea that you're going to make them ask for money. That happens all the time. So that's
Hmm.
why thankathons are another
Hmm.
great way. They can write thank you notes too, as
Right.
added to your tax receipt letter, as a separate additional thing. So again,
Yeah.
fundraising, building those, strengthening those relationships, solidifying them. That's where you want to go.
I love how you simplified. When you get that donation in the mail, go ahead and pick up the phone.
Pick up
And
the phone.
yeah, before you even drop it into the go to the bank account
Yeah,
or deposit it, like just adding that step into your process, just pick up the phone and just thank you, and then kind of go proceeding. I love how you just, especially for those organizations, like adding another thing. Well, if you're gonna head over to the bank, you might as well make that 2 minute stop and
yeah.
give that phone call for that thank you, and it goes a long way.
Then the wonderful thing about it is voicemails with that same
Hmm.
thank you, enthusiastic thank you, are just
Yep.
as effective. So you just make sure you leave a number so they can call you back if they want to. It's that, you want to surprise and delight people. That's what
Yep.
was a phrase we use here all the time, surprise and delight. And friend raising is a great space for that.
Hmm. Love it.
Mhm.
All right, so then in the area of fund development, so we are what, halfway through the year
Well,
already.
depends on your year, right?
Oh, that is true. That is true. yes. Yep.
Yeah, it depends on when your fiscal year starts.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
for those out there who are running on a calendar year, you're hitting your last quarter tomorrow.
Hmm.
You're starting your final quarter, so you need to have your budgets being developed. You need to be finishing up your end of year fundraising. You need to be focused on your libunts, those who gave last year, but unfortunately not this. To make sure you're
Hmm.
you know renewing them and bringing them back into the fold. But for those who are like us, our fiscal year starts July 1. So we're getting ready to enter our second quarter. Um, so we've got a different flow that's happening. And then you've got a lot of corporate organizations, especially, and some of our foundations that support us for grants, who are doing an October 1 new fiscal
Hmm.
year. So they're scrambling to finish up reports and push out that last bit of money.
Hmm.
Maybe they have some extra dollars they want to send your way.
Yep.
So it's important to pay attention not only to yours but where everybody else is. And without fail, this final quarter, because it is getting into the holiday season, that is a huge time for giving for all nonprofits. So now is a
Hmm.
great time to be thinking about and finalizing whatever you're going to do for Giving Tuesday, if you're going to do
Hmm.
something for Giving Tuesday. Do you have a final push at the end of your year, the end of the tax year that you want to do? Um, and how can you make yourself, your organization stand out? What can you share with your donors and prospective donors about the impact that they can create by supporting your organization at this time? Now, it's kind of sad to say that people tend to think of the holidays as the time to give, because the reality is food banks are still in need in February. Kids
Hmm.
are still hungry in March.
Hmm.
Nonprofits
Hmm.
have year round missions for a reason. There are goals to be met throughout the year, but this is a great time. It's an easy time for donors, and when
Hmm.
we can make it easy for donors, they're more likely to support us. So making sure your messaging is strong about your final push, either to the end of the calendar year or the end of your fiscal year, whatever that might be. And the other thing I will say, Lashina, is your year-end giving is much stronger if you're able to do some year-end, not quite year-end, stewardship and thanking before
Hmm.
the ask. Um,
Mm.
so
Hmm.
October, November is a great time to be doing thankathons, and we're getting to the end of the year. I just want to thank you so much for having been a supporter. It's a great call to make for your Libunts. To say,
Hmm.
we're getting into the end of the tax year. We know you've been a strong supporter, um, and just want to thank you for what you've done in the past. You don't have to include an ask in that thank you, but you got to do the thank you first before you ask again. So think about how that works. A thank you and an ask together do not um, really go together very well.
Right.
So do the thank you first. So
Yeah.
been done for me.
Got it.
Yeah.
So what about when it comes to setting your annual fundraising goals?
Hmm.
What are some tips that you have for organizations in order to set that goal from one year to the other and making sure that it's a realistic goal that they can attain?
Yeah, and that's challenging with the years we've had, right?
Mhm.
You're then and just just know you're always going to have something. So just
Mhm.
know that life and world and reality is going to happen. I've done fundraising through 9/11, fundraising through the recession, fundraising through COVID,
Mhm.
all of these things that come. The biggest mistake that nonprofits make is they think, "Ooh, there's so much going on, we should not ask people." No, you need to ask. You need to go ahead and ask. Because if as long as you're high enough up on their priority list, your donors are going to support you even when they are having some challenges. And it's good to acknowledge what some of those challenges are, especially if it has to do with your mission. But don't stop. So that's one thing I do want to
Mhm.
say. In terms
Mhm.
of setting budgets, um, it's it helps to have some history to be able to look at. So can you look back over your last 5 years and see what your trends have been? Where are things growing? Where are they getting stagnating? Where are they stagnating? Um, where is it costing you more to raise a dollar? And how do you calculate that? You look at how much you raised that was gross, the total amount you raised, and then you look at what the expenses were to raise that. So if it cost you $25,000 to raise $75,000, right?
Mhm.
Then it's
Mhm.
costing you 33 cents to raise a dollar. That's a lot. But that's
Mhm.
typical for events, right? Events often are very resource intensive. Take a look at those things. Take a look at whether it's really working. And in general, look at your trends, um, and then look where you have growth opportunities. I'll give you some examples from where we are. Um, Events are I mentioned events are very resource intensive, and I'm not a huge fan of
Mhm.
relying on events. Don't I'm not a huge fan of relying on only one revenue
Mhm.
stream of any kind. I think you need at least a
Mhm.
four-legged stool, please,
Mhm.
if you can. Three at minimum, three-legged,
Mhm. Mhm.
four-legged stool. But that said, we have a lot of audiences where we need to do the fundraising, we need to do the awareness, we need to bring them in. So we've had a golf tournament for many, many years. We have tweaked within the golf tournament where we can increase numbers, but a golf tournament at some point, there's a ceiling for that. You can only have so many golfers on a golf course at a time.
Mhm.
So we were looking at, all right, that's getting mature. It's not going to get much bigger. What else could we do? And we thought, well, okay, we need something family friendly. This is specific to us. We need family friendly. We need to something that will encourage young parents and alumni to come on out. We need it to be low cost for the attendee, and fairly low cost for us. So we looked around to our partners and we developed our school spirit run, so which is still growing, but so we
Mhm.
added
Mhm.
we added something in order to build our budget
Mhm.
rather than try to raise the golf tournament's goals. We added
Mm.
something
Mhm.
new
Mhm.
in an area where we knew there was room for us to grow. Um, when I was doing annual fund, I would take a look at what percentage of our donors had increased their giving, what percentage were staying the same, and what percentage were dropping. And I would use
Mhm.
that to figure out, is there, and can we move our annual fund asks up a bit? Do we have people who've been giving the same number for a long time, and so we need to ask them to start increasing a little at a time? So take a look at each of our revenue streams and see what we have resources to do. We focus on grants, on events, on individual giving, um, and we have the employee giving campaign, which is part of the individual giving. We are
Mhm.
probably going to increase our goals for Giving Tuesday. So it's something we haven't done a
Mhm.
whole lot with. And we
Mhm.
are looking at ways we can increase our individual giving, because and we've relied a little too heavily on corporate and foundation. So
Mhm.
you have to look at your audiences, your trends, um, and do you have the bandwidth to add new things? How's your board giving? Is
Mhm.
everybody giving on the board? And can they increase what they are giving? I would definitely do asks. I would look at board giving and look at that as a source for increasing.
Mhm.
You need to set your budgets, and I'd look for cost savings in your expenses, because you can either raise
Mhm.
more money or you can spend less money doing that. So if there are places
Mhm.
where you can, um, that's great. At the same time, you have to spend money to make money. You have to invest. The reality is that a lot of nonprofits are aiming for a ratio of, 10 or 11 cents to raise a dollar. That translates into a 90% profit margin. If it's only
Mhm.
costing you 10 cents to raise a dollar, that
Mhm.
means I mean, in the corporate space, that would be amazing. It's flipped,
Mhm.
right? The
Mhm.
expectations are flipped. Any corporate
Mhm.
partner that I know of would be thrilled to have a 10% profit margin, and we got a 90% profit margin? Nice,
Right.
right? Um, so, it is about scale and scope. So you need to also talk with your board about, how scaling up your human resources are going to help you greatly exponentially increase what you can raise. So you got
Mhm.
to look at your human resources and see what's there. Do not let resources drive. We've talked about that before.
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
Objectives, then methods, then resources, and fill in those resource gaps first. But really take a
Mhm.
look at what who can do what on your team. Do you need somebody? Do you need to bring in somebody new? And is your board willing to invest in your team so that you can move on up? Um, you can share with them the bake sale myth. I love this one because we're in educational
Mhm.
fundraising. The bake sale
Mhm.
myth is that it is somehow morally superior to have a bake sale that only costs you 5 cents to raise a dollar, versus having professional staff, development staff, that might cost you, let's say, 40 cents to raise a dollar. Big
Mhm.
difference there, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
How much does a really good bake sale bring you? That's the rub.
Mhm.
That bake sale I
Right.
went to was like
Yeah.
$2,000.
R-
It was
Right.
huge.
Right. Yep.
So, but
Mhm.
your professional staff might be able to bring you $200,000.
That's
So,
true. Yep. Yeah.
it's not just relative. There's that scale too. How much do you
Mhm.
need? How much do you want to do in the community? What does it take to do that? So it's all
Mhm.
balance. And it's hard
Yeah.
to answer that question without thinking about,
It's the different factors.
yeah, because there's so many variables you have to consider. But in general,
Yeah.
that's what I would say. I hope that's helpful.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Is there anything else in the area of fund development or fundraising that you would like to cover?
Oh my goodness, there's probably tons, but I'd love to know if people have questions out in the
Yeah. Let me check the chat to see if there's any questions. Feel free to drop them. I see Dolly said hi. Hi, Dolly. Hi, Shay. I do not see any questions. No, I don't see any questions.
okay. Then in that
Awesome.
case, I would say, in terms of fundraising, if you have volunteers, that is a group to thank and to work on fundraising with. It's also
Mhm,
a wonderful group to reach out to for small gifts or to talk to about planned giving.
mhm,
Um, they are emotionally invested in your organization. And so, looking at some who've been very involved and asking them, would they consider making a small gift, or, sharing with them
mhm,
information about planned giving if you're ready for that, is a good space. So, um, and then just um, in general with friend raising, that stewardship side, I'm just going to emphasize that again.
Mm-hmm.
We get into the holiday season. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Nothing better than a thank you, whether it's written or it's a phone call, and you can include volunteers in that too. They would probably be absolutely tickled to get
Mm-hmm.
a thank you phone call, especially if they're doing a great deal of work, and it's something you haven't done before. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, um, there's again, it helps with specific nonprofits to think about what their challenges are. I'm
Mm-hmm.
always happy to help with that. But yeah, yeah,
Love it.
it's the time of to start. Yeah,
Yeah. You know what I love about the Thinkathon before we get ready to wrap up today is it kind of brings you back to basic.
mhm,
I feel like kind of with technology and everything, we're doing everything through email, text, all types of different methods, and we're losing that connection. And Thinkathons like take you back to that basic of just pick up the phone.
yeah,
So I love when you talk about that. And then also now involving the volunteers as well, because that would mean a lot that you took time out of your day, your team took time out of their schedule just to say thank you.
yeah.
It doesn't feel automated. It just feel that human connection is still there and remains. So I love when you talk about the thankathon.
Well, and I will say, and this is just a rule of thumb for the whole field, you
Mm-hmm.
always want to get as close to face as you can. Always, if
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
have the opportunity to meet somebody in person, take it. If
Mm-hmm.
the best you can do is a phone call, then do that. If the very
Mm-hmm.
best you can do is a heartfelt note or letter, so be it. But the hardest thing to ignore is the face to face, and the
Mm-hmm.
easiest way to gauge how you're doing in raising that friend and building that relationship is a face to face interaction. Um,
Mm-hmm.
70% of what we communicate is nonverbal. And if you can't see me and you can only hear me, or all you see is what I'm typing, you're
Mm-hmm.
missing a lot of information about our relationship and how I'm reacting to it. So
Mm-hmm.
go for face to face as best you can and as often as possible. And if it's got
Yeah.
to be phone call, that's fine. You can at
Right,
least
right.
phone. Yeah. So, yep.
Love it. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you on. If you have a few minutes, I'd love after the session,
Yep.
I'd love to try to see if we can schedule you for future sessions
Of
once again.
course.
Because always, I feel like we can talk, we can be here all day, and I can just listen and just soak up everything all day. But so if you don't have a few minutes after, I'd love for you to hang on, and then we can do that. So
Sounds good.
thank you everyone for tuning in. To our live. We'll be back next Thursday. We'll be starting a new series next Thursday. So this was the last conversation on fund development and friend raising for now. It's coming back a couple times throughout the year. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.